We're back.
Here we are.
We're doing it again.
Another Tuesday afternoon in the office.
Another Tuesday afternoon in the office. It's so funny. Like our episode last week recapping the UTMB Chianti 123 UTCC Castles Coffee Extravaganza is our most listened to podcast ever.
Wow.
Yeah. So the people are here for my terrible nutrition tips. I feel validated.
I hope people are going to stick around to listen to my comments on mid-run bananas today.
Is it going to be spicy?
So spicy.
Awesome. Well,
Yes.
maybe we should get right to it. So we're going to do what we do best. We're going to start with our hot or nots. We have 5 awesome topics. 5? No, we have 4. We have 4 awesome topics. Plus, we have our segment, Coach's Nightmare, where we answer questions either emailed to us or randomly pulled from Reddit. And then, since we're recovering from our big ultras, we'll check in a little bit about how our recovery's going.
Yeah.
And then we're going to talk a little bit about the science of ultra running recovery and recovery from races in general, like what happens in your body. And we're going to talk about the misconception that training for longer races will always make you slower. So lots of good stuff. And even though we are going to talk a little bit about ultramarathons later on, it's not specific to ultras. So plenty of stuff for runners, athletes of all types, all terrains, chatted about today.
All-terrain athletes here on the pod.
All-terrain athletes. I've been big on jogging in circles around town lately.
It's been my MO. I am just dying to get out on our limited available trails.
There's like a whole mile of trail we can run now.
I will run that mile of trail over and over again. It's not as bad as the 0.64 mile of trail that I repeated over and over again in training to get ready for the steep hills of Chianti.
Which hill did you run over and over again?
Mushroom Rock.
Mushroom Rock, yeah. For our locals, they'll know how masochistic that is.
Yeah, it was insane. Glad I did it though.
Glad you did it too. Was it worth it?
It did, because then I saw those hills in Chianti and I was like, well, yeah, I can run this.
Yeah, when I saw those hills in Chianti, I thought, fuck me, I should have run more trail.
Should have done Mushroom Rock.
Should have done Mushroom Rock.
On repeat.
Yeah.
I did 6 miles in 2 hours, but boy, did I get some vert.
Lesson learned. All right, TJ, first hot or not question. Hot or not. And these, thanks guys for sending these in. These are sent by our listeners. So if you have a hot or not you want us to rate, or if you have a question you want to submit, microcosmcoaching@gmail.com. First one for you, Coach TJ. Low heart rate training.
Low heart rate training.
Hot or not?
This is so hot, as long as you're not using a heart rate monitor.
Tell me more about that, briefly.
Obviously you have to be going at a certain effort level to elicit aerobic adaptations. And so that's going to be a zone 1 to zone 2 heart rate.
Yeah.
And if you need a heart rate monitor to get you there the first few times you do this, fine, use it, great. But the purpose is find your way there, because that's where the adaptations lie. And 80%, at least 80% of your training should be done in those 2 zones. That's how you're going to get the adaptations. That's how you're going to get faster and be able to do things like 10K all the way up to 100 miles.
Yeah.
So I'm all about it. If you have to use your heart rate to get there, fine. Those are kind of training wheels in my opinion, but get there however you need to, and then rinse and repeat.
Sick. Okay.
What do you think?
I agree. I don't use I wear a heart rate monitor. I don't look at my heart rate. I go off RPE. I encourage my athletes to go off RPE and to use heart rate like training wheels on a bicycle, or like bumpers in bowling. It can kind of help keep you going in the right zone, in the right direction. But data is a tool, not a rule.
Love it.
Yeah. All right. Running in the dark, hot or not?
Ugh.
Oh, that was quite the sound.
I just want to say not hot. Ugh.
TJ
Awful.
just expired live on the podcast.
I'm dead. Well, I'm thinking about the first 3 hours of Chianti were the worst 3 hours I've had in basically any race. I'd say it was worse than the 12 hours I spent vomiting at CCC.
Wow.
And worse than
You would rather vomit than run in the dark?
I just don't like running in the dark.
Huh.
But I got over my fear. Like, if I could get through that, I feel like I'm going to be all right at Run Rabbit, which is my next big race of the season, and all the way out there in September. But there's
22 weeks from today.
Yeah. But there's like hours and hours. I'm gonna have to run through an entire night.
All of it. Every second of it.
I better learn
Make peace with it.
to feel really hot about running in the dark.
Yeah. I used to not be that hot on it. In fact, was like a little, like, had a little bit of fear around it. 'Cause, I mean, like, also it was just like, I do try to get my running done in the daytime because I have a more flexible work. Like, I don't go to an office.
Yeah.
So I do usually run in the daytime, but I started going to group runs at night, and that kind of helped me, like, get to, like, oh, okay, like, this is, like, how we do it. And then after I did Run Rabbit, where the elite field starts at noon, and you have to run through all of the night no matter what. Like, I feel like usually with ultras, I'm kind of, like, racing the night, and I'm always like, the faster I go, the sooner I can sleep. Whereas in Run Rabbit, you just have to radically accept that it is going to be night for all of the nighttime. And I actually feel like that really helped me reframe running in the dark and made me a lot more comfortable with it. And I actually had a great time with it. And now I feel like it really helped me add another tool to my toolkit where I'm like,
Yeah.
I feel pretty good about using the headlamp, about like staying warm. I feel like I don't really have like that much of like a safety fear. It's just kind of like a skill set that I had to like practice to get it right. And now that I've done it, I feel pretty good about it. So I'm going to say like, it's not my preferred. Like I would definitely rather run in the light than in the dark, but I actually kind of do love when like your whole world just becomes like what you can see in the beam of your headlamp. Like I find that strangely calming.
That narrow scope can make you very present, I suppose.
Yeah. But also like the, you know, the research, like, you know, often we'll have athletes like be like, man, I did my workout in the dark and it felt really hard. Like, yeah, like science does show that your perceived effort will be different in the dark because it makes your proprioception like so much harder. It's so much harder to like judge the distance of things. So,
Yeah.
you know, just bear that in mind as well. Like, particularly if you're racing a race where you'll be running sections in the dark, like it's totally normal and okay for it to feel a little funky. And I don't know. I don't like recommend athletes like necessarily try to train at night to get ready for an ultra. I'm kind of like, you know, if you can pace a friend through a night portion of a race, that might be good, or do like a couple runs, like maybe in the dark when it becomes light. But I don't think that missing out on sleep to get marginally better at running through the night is worth it.
Yeah. I always tell people if you want to do one long run where you start at, you start in the very early evening before it gets dark and know that it will carry through into the dark. That should be enough to calibrate your effort and not interrupt your sleep. And if you interrupt that sleep, obviously that's bad for recovery. I don't know. I think about running in the dark. I'm like, I don't want to do that. And that's not great. But I've got 22 weeks to figure it out.
Yeah.
I'm sure I will.
And you'll get really good at it during Run Rabbit.
I'm going
I'm going to come find you out there in the dark. I'm going to sneak up on you.
I hope it's not raining. And I hope you don't sneak up on me. I mean, that would be a really bad day for me, but a great day for you.
It's true.
So
I really hope that doesn't happen either. That would be sad.
Okay, mid-run bananas. Hot or not?
I mean, I like fruit.
You like a fiber bomb in the gut?
No, I mean, I'm just like not that big, like, again, like I think people know how I feel about like quote unquote real food fueling. Like, I think that sports nutrition is preferred for most people in many circumstances. You know, whatever, we talk about this all the time. I don't think like just jamming on a banana is that awesome. You know, it's like very soccer practice 1998 vibes.
That's what we ate at halftime in my soccer games when I was a kid.
Yeah.
96.
Yeah, I do have a screenshot of Josh O'Connor eating a banana from Challengers on my phone. That's hot.
In a sauna?
He is shirtless, yes. There is a shirtless component to it.
Well, is there a sauna component as well?
No, it's a different scene, and I also have screenshots from that scene.
Wow.
Very passionate
we have
about.
a lot to talk about later today.
Yeah. A lot of screenshots that you may or may not have seen on my phone.
I mean, you have a podcast called Your Diet Sucks.
Correct.
And
check it out
I'm
wherever
just
you get your podcasts.
Curious, like, you know, in your opinion, having researched a lot of different diets and ways of being out there, is the mid-run banana way of being, is that something that we want to consider? Do we want to, athletes want to do that?
I don't think so. I think if you're going to go for real food, do something that has a little less fructose and a little less fiber. Not that fructose or fiber are bad. That's just like not ideal during the run. That is great for normal life nutrition, but if you're gonna do the real food, I would reach for like a cookie, a chip, a cracker, a pretzel,
Coffee cake?
a coffee cake. I noticed you brought home a bunch of coffee cake today that we need to talk about.
Yeah.
This is your version of shirtless Josh O'Connor pics.
I eat coffee cake shirtless.
That's true. I have a picture of that also.
I'm starting my, my fueling practice for Run Rabbit. I'm going to use...
That's what you call it.
Coffee cake as my solid food option.
I did. I made cookies this weekend. They're all gone now.
Yes, 48
Because our glycogen stores runneth over. I ate a cookie in bed last night. Now there's crumbs all in the bed, and I'm so sad. I just slept in a pile of cookie, and now we're gonna have to watch the sheets, and it's a whole thing. Anyway, I digress. All right.
Post-run beers.
Hot or not, post-run beers.
I'm gonna say, this is tough. I'm gonna grunt about this one as well because you're giving me these things
Tough
that are
ones.
hard. Okay, we've done this one before.
We have.
I'm gonna say it's hot.
Oh,
But I'm gonna put the caveat on people should know the downside of having a post-run beer.
Yeah.
I like this because one, we want to bring people together.
community's good.
Alcohol is one of those things that is a catalyst for bringing people together, right?
Can be.
And it is. It really is.
Yeah.
Like people go to bars, they drink, they socialize, and all of that. People get together after events. But I don't always love the association that kind of has developed in this outdoor sports world of like, do your mountain bike ride, go skiing, do your run, and let's grab beers after. Almost like the beers are this like thing that you get as the reward for doing this thing. And I also, because alcohol is a depressant, what happens when you drink alcohol is it starts to down regulate your nervous system. And when you go out on these adventures, you do a run, you do a bike, you do a ski, you're elevated from that experience. Your nervous system's keyed up. And I would love for people to just sit in that experience and how that feels and not go right to a beer or whatever that's going to bring you down.
Right.
And unintentionally, some people develop a habit around that. I feel stress. I drink alcohol. I feel, whoa, too much joy. Grab a beer, bring myself down. And they're not even consciously understanding how those things are linked in those behaviors. So I caution against those things within the context of, I like the social aspect. I like people getting together. For that reason, post-run drinks of some kind are great.
Yeah. I'm going to say community, hot. Alcohol, not that hot. I'm just going to be honest. It's not, I think, when I have athletes that are what's the number one thing I can do to, get better? If you are currently drinking alcohol more than once a week, the first thing you can do to improve your athletic journey,
stop drinking.
Get that down to once a week or, rarely, once or twice a month. I don't want to put a specific number to it because I think that's a really personal number, but if you're drinking weekly, that's really not that awesome for athletes. That is basically in terms of adaptations, shooting yourself in the foot. But there's all sorts of lovely ways to connect. You can do post-run kombuchas, or at our local group run at Independence Run and Hike. Shout out to Coach Zach. We have it's sponsored by Athletic Brewing. That's fucking sick. Kylie and I love a cocktail, but we also like to come together over a good mocktail. So there are great substitutions here, and I think that it is important to lean into that aspect of community and connection and the après of your run, but to do it in a way that again, I'm not going to put a number to it. I'm not here to yuck your yum, but I do think that a lot of folks could reconsider their relationship with the substance.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more.
And I know it's highly personal and charged and something that people might want to talk to a professional about or they feel vulnerable about, but and that's kind of one different discussion that we're not having here. I will just posit that the science is pretty unequivocal that alcohol is really shitty for running.
Yeah, it's not
shitty
good.
for sleep. Also not great for your mental health. Those things are not debated.
Not great for your HRV.
Not good for your HRV. Anyway, Moving on. Speaking of bad sleep, nightmares.
Nightmares. Coach's nightmare.
So we got this question from a listener. I'm training for my fall marathon and we're getting these random 90-degree Fahrenheit days already. It's not hot enough yet for full heat training, but these single hot days are really wrecking me. Should I adjust my workouts on these one-off scorchers or just tough it out since it's only occasional?
You know, knowing how to deal with stuff like this is going to make you a really great athlete. So I'm excited for this question. Let's just give a quick.
Is there sparkling water in this Gatorade?
Yeah.
Holy shit, I just took a big slug and that was like really unexpected. Sorry. I'm like getting sweaty talking about heat and oh my god. Anyway, yeah. So I think it's worth acknowledging that these sudden heat spikes that we're getting like now that it's spring, like I started my run in a crop top turtleneck today and ended my run not in a crop top turtleneck.
Oh.
So it was randomly much hotter than I had anticipated.
Spring is here.
Spring is here, and these sudden heat spikes feel way, way harder because your body just isn't adapted yet. So we want to give our athletes some fast, simple strategies for these one-off days to stay safe and still get the training benefits.
Yeah. Just note, like, if it's hotter and you're not adjusted to those temps, it's going to feel harder.
Yep.
So, you know, the goal here is to figure out, right, like what you said, some strategies to deal with that. So what do we have? 4 or 5 key points to talk about?
Yep.
Let's do it.
Yeah, number one, I think, is understanding the impact of sudden heat. So acute heat exposure increases your heart rate and perceived effort at the same workload. Again, this is why we like our athletes to use relative perceived effort instead of just using their heart rate monitor as the end-all be-all of their run. So without prior heat adaptation, your body's going to struggle to regulate temperature effectively. So your sweat rate and your blood flow demand spike, and that's going to compete with oxygen delivery to your muscles.
Right. So that makes your RPE go up.
That's correct.
Yeah. All right. Key point number 2. This is super, super important. So the best way to deal with that discrepancy between your output levels and your RPE is to focus on the effort. Don't focus on your pace. If you're on a bike, don't focus on your power. Training on hot days becomes about controlling your effort, not chasing the numbers, because there is going to be that discrepancy. As it gets hotter, it's going to feel harder to go at a given pace. So if you're a runner who runs comfortably at a 9-minute mile and then all of a sudden it's 90 degrees and you're acclimated to 50 or 60 degree temperatures, likely you're going to have to do like a 10 or even a 10-30 mile, maybe even 11-minute miles to feel like that's an easy pace. And so your number one best defense against that heat is just slowing down and focusing on making it feel easy. So just know your usual like paces, like it doesn't apply in the heat. That's why we go to effort.
Yeah. Another thing you might want to do is shorten your duration or just adjust the workout structure. So you might reduce your workout length to slightly manage the total heat exposure. Again, the body knows stress, not miles. And because heat is stimulus, heat is stress, you can't, like, the same workout done on a random 90-degree day versus a 45-degree day is a different stress. It is a different stimulus. So you want to sort of, like, adjust accordingly. If you're feeling like you're kind of getting to the edge in terms of, like, stress, maybe dial things back a bit. Like, keep that effort down. Particularly, make sure you're executing the effort correctly, and that might entail shortening things. So, you know, that can be another thing. And then another thing that we really want to focus on, which is key point number 4, is hydrate aggressively and proactively. So start hydrated, not just during the session. I think most athletes live their lives pretty dehydrated, as evidenced by my slugging on your Gatorade thing. So the wrong time to try to start hydrating is during the workout. Like, you should be try to hydrate better during real life, like the ladies with their big old Stanley tumblers.
I always tell athletes to pre-hydrate too.
Yes.
So 75 minutes before the run, start drinking some sports drink. That way, when you go out there, you've preloaded these sessions. And again, when we think about like this hydration factor, if you don't shorten your run, and you're not used to those temperatures are going to increase your sweat rate a lot. So if you're not prepared for that and you don't have extra fluids, you're going to be in a world of pain and suffering out there, and it's not going to be fun, and it's likely not going to be productive training either. So that proactive approach, even if it's dialing back the training to adjust, it also kind of goes right along with the proactive approach to the hydration.
Yep. During workouts, you can use shade, cold sponges, douse yourself with water to keep your skin temperature cool.
Ice.
Yep, ice. And then our last point here, I think, is going to be really focusing on your post-workout recovery. So make sure that you're cooling down post-exercise to minimize cardiovascular strain, rehydrate with electrolytes, and just, take care of yourself. And again, just hydrate well throughout the day. And make sure that your easy recovery days or lower intensity follow-up sessions help absorb the heat stress. So
I would also recommend, if you know it's going to be warm and you've got a workout or a long run, either shift those sessions to days where it's cooler, because those days are already high stress enough, or do them earlier to minimize how much time you have in the heat, because again, those days are already quite stressful. So if you're not proactive with that approach, you're going to be putting a lot more stress on top of stress. It kind of goes back to that component of the body knows stress, not miles. Are these sessions going to really be productive in those conditions?
And I think, the key strategy is more mitigation than avoidance, because it is going to be summer. So again, prioritizing your long-term and overall health and well-being, but you don't want to become totally avoidant. If you never run when it's above 80 degrees, you're going to have a hard time doing the training that you need to do to be a runner.
Yeah.
And you do, a lot of times races will occur in heat conditions. For me, I'm just I'm going to race in the heat, so I'm going to train in the heat. I'm just going to be more understanding and intentional on the front end during the spring, when there are some days that are aberrantly hot, way above average hot, and being kind to my body in that adaptation process.
Exactly. Because also those random 90-degree days they're not going to provide the frequent exposure to heat that you need to adapt to those temperatures. So, you can use cooling techniques. You can go earlier. You can even move those workouts. It's not going to matter as much. But when those temperatures do become consistently high, you can't really avoid it.
Yep.
So you can do yourself some favors by making some adjustments on the front end in order to ease into that process. And then the adaptations will come with exposure.
Yeah. Cool. Well, let's talk about what happens to your body after a long race or an ultra marathon.
Oh God, what is happening to my body right now? I feel tired still.
Yeah, so one of the first things that happens in your body after a long race is muscle damage and inflammation. That's probably pretty intuitive. I know after our race in Chianti, we were limping around for days. So your CK levels, what that means is creatine kinase levels, participating in marathons causes a substantial increase in CK levels, which is an enzyme indicative of muscle damage. For instance, a study observed that runner CK levels surged by 1,289% post-race, highlighting significant muscle breakdown. There's also an inflammatory response, so extended endurance activities can lead to an inflammatory reaction, resulting in muscle soreness and swelling, particularly in lower limbs. This is something that always gets me really good after ultras. I had to keep putting my legs up a wall, and usually the day after longer races, I can't wear my fitted jeans because there's some swelling occurring. Yeah, some water retention is happening.
Your feet look like little sausages.
My feet, I had brought these really cute shoes to Italy that have little Aperol spritzes on them, and I couldn't get my feet in them. We were going out to eat nice meals, and I had to just be barefoot in this osteria. It was pretty embarrassing.
What goes on with the kidney after these events too?
So renal stress. The stress from ultramarathons can lead to temporary kidney function impairments, as evidenced by a 72% increase in serum creatine levels post creatinine levels post-race. There's also going to be an issue with hydration balance. So maintaining proper hydration is essential, and dehydration can exacerbate renal stress and hinder recovery. So it's always really important to force or to get in those fluids and electrolytes after a big event.
Do you have a kind of a rule around that with athletes? Like, focus on your hydration for 48 hours after, or 72 hours at? Like, do you tell them anything
I don't
specific?
have a rule, but I really do have them pay attention to it, because like it really depends on the event, on the environment, and on their like sort of their individual physiology. So I don't have a rule around it, but I always really do like impart the importance of like making sure that you take care of your hydration, and also again like getting in food, because you'll be in a caloric deficit, and if you delay taking in those fluids, taking in those electrolytes, taking in those calories, you're going to delay recovery and you'll just feel awful.
Something that Kylie's always kind of mentioned on our past couple podcast episodes where we've highlighted her expertise is that your body can actually remain dehydrated for even more than 48 hours after these races. And so proper hydration after these events, according to Kylie, is hydration not just with water, but with electrolytes. So I always like to tell athletes, pay attention to how you feel. Pay attention to your urine color. That can tell you a lot. Do you feel thirsty? Make sure you're drinking electrolytes still, because your body is going to likely be depleted after these events. Even if your hydration is really good, even if you're really on top of these things, and it needs it to recover.
Exactly.
So to keep giving it what it needs to support that recovery process.
Yep. And then there's also hormonal fluctuations. So stress hormones, your levels of cortisol and I'm not totally sure how to pronounce this, honestly. Catecholamines rise during prolonged endurance events, and that can actually impact your metabolism and immune function.
Totally. And I see that a lot in myself.
Yeah.
I don't know if you see this, but like for me, I sometimes struggle to eat after a big ultra or even like a really long run, like, you know, a stressful long run, more than 6 hours, where the cortisol levels are going up. It's like, I can't again stress this more. Like, find something that feels appetizing. Yeah. So you can jumpstart that recovery process.
And even if you don't feel hungry, I'm so sorry, you just still have to eat, because your ghrelin levels are going to be off. Like exercise will make you feel less hungry. That's not your body saying, we're all good, dude. Don't worry about that pizza till tomorrow. No, sorry. You still absolutely have to eat, because if not, you're really just kneecapping your recovery. So I know it's hard. Like I always get like a to-go pizza to basically I'm never like trying to eat at the finish line, but when I get home, do my like sit down pathetic shower, like you have to eat. It will not feel good. You will feel nauseous. You got to get over yourself. You got to eat the pizza.
And like sometimes I even notice, and I wonder if other athletes have experienced this too, is like you'll wake up in the middle of the night hungry.
Oh yeah, that's why. Like, that's why the pizza.
Right. That's
like,
why you
gotta
have to have
keep
a whole
it in the
pizza.
bedroom. Yep. Correct.
In the bedroom, on the bed.
Exactly. And there's actually, according to the research, there's actually sex-specific responses. So men may experience a decrease in testosterone, while women might see an increase in estradiol. And so it really affects different physiological processes and might vary from male to female athletes.
So we also have central nervous system fatigue, and I think athletes are probably familiar with this, but not familiar, like they don't understand to call it central nervous system fatigue.
They're just like, I feel tired, and fucked up.
But this is like when it starts to become really hard to continue to run. I can't run downhill. I can't run the flats anymore. So that's the neuromuscular impacts of these long, prolonged races. Mm-hmm. And so that exertion, it leads to central nervous system fatigue, and it diminishes your muscle function and coordination. So I'm trying to send these signals to my legs, run, and they're just like really slow to respond.
Hard pass.
Yeah, I think I'm done. I think I'm walking now. And there's also changes to your neurotransmitters. So alterations in those neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine can affect your mood and motivation. So this can happen during the race, but it also happens a lot in your recovery.
Yeah, and I think like that's something I always really stress to my athletes, making sure we have open and honest dialogue about like the post-race blues particularly,
Yeah.
which can be like totally like having a big mental low after an event is pretty normal. It's actually not that well understood, not that well researched, and it can feel pretty like it can be decoupled from the outcome. Like I've won races, but just because I'm like running for 14 hours, I like the way that it affects my brain chemistry is not in the happy direction, and that's okay. Like now I know what it is, I know how to work through it, I know how to talk about it, and it's way less scary when you know it's like, oh yeah, I just like freaking spent all of my dopamine yesterday while I was running.
Have you had any off, like has your mood felt off after this race, or have you experienced any
Not
blues?
as much with this one. I think also the fact that it was at sea level and the fact that like I mean it was 15 hours. You know, I usually feel like
Oh, that's nothing.
well, you know, I think that like I did like I will have trouble focusing like after these longer ultras. Like you and I have learned like we cannot go back to work the day after running these big races because
No.
like straight up like I should not like I can't operate like a motor vehicle well. Like it
Yeah.
is like when you're so focused for so many hours, that just does impact your brain chemistry. It does impact your mood. I mean, for me, like also because like I'm on a dopamine reuptake inhibitor, which I think has helped me
Oh,
particularly.
interesting. I forgot about that and how that could possibly lend to a better mood after races.
Yeah, but I know in the past, like I've had, like I remember a few years ago, I had like really bad post-race blues after I did the Tillamook 50 miler.
Yeah.
Just like for no reason. Like I had a fine race, had a great time, was like on a vacation in Portland, and I just felt like so down. And I just like also felt like I just like spent all of my mental energy running 50 miles. So again, these things are normal. Would love to see more research on it, but I do think the biggest thing is like just talking about it, knowing that it's normal, knowing it's okay for your motivation to feel weird in the days and weeks after a race. Talk about that with your coach. It doesn't make you like, you know, you might feel really excited and connected to the training. And you might feel like, oh, that race was just like fine and I don't feel that motivated. And I'm like really tired. All of those are things you should talk about with your coach. And potentially if it gets to the point of feeling more like a recurrent mental health thing, potentially a therapist or healthcare provider.
Good to investigate that. I noticed for myself after this race that I didn't really feel a huge dip with my mood.
Yeah.
And I wondered if that was because like we purposefully took took 3 days after the race to carve out some time and like vacation, go see some like sites and stuff around Italy. If that maybe helped to like ease the transition.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, I have noticed like at this point, like we're starting week 3 of the recovery process.
Yeah.
And like about now, you would expect to start possibly, hopefully feeling some differences. And like I have some runs that feel good.
Yeah.
And I have some runs that are like, that's pretty lackluster. But one thing I've noticed is like mentally, my brain wants to start cashing some checks that my body is totally not ready to cash.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh, that's a nice sign. Motivation is returning. But in those first like few days back to work after the race, I felt like a little bit like after too many hours of working in a row, I was like, all right, no more focus. No more focus.
Yeah, actually, that's one of the primary reasons I wanted to talk about this on the podcast is so often I'll see an athlete go and they'll do an ultra and like, regardless of outcome, they'll be like, oh, that was great. Like, I'm ready to get back to training.
Right.
And holy fucking shit, don't do that. One of the most important things I've done in my running career is I participated in a study on Western States runners where we did blood tests at different phases throughout our training. And one of my blood tests was after I had raced a 50 miler. And I, like all of my athletes, was like, I feel great. I'm so ready to get back to training. And when I saw the results of my blood test, I was like, oh my God. Because I felt great. I was telling everyone I felt great. I was telling my coach I was ready to get back to training. According to my blood test, I had been hit by a fucking truck. Like, my biomarkers were like my CK level, and like not to the point where it's like medical issue, but it was just like so clear that like you can feel superficially good. That's not an invitation to like start hammering and training. That means the recovery is working and you should do that.
And you should do more of that.
You should do more of that.
And that's the thing too that I've really been thinking about a lot as a coach, because I want to always nail the recovery process with my athletes and not inadvertently push them to return faster than they're ready for, because one, you have to refill the motivational battery. You have to recharge that battery. You have to recharge the focus battery. Like that mental and emotional battery needs to be recharged in order to handle challenges in the training process and in racing later.
Yeah.
If those things are half full or even 3/4 full when you start back up, just note, you're not going to get as much out of that next training phase. And likely you'll probably have to take more recovery time during that training phase to deal with the fact that you weren't actually 100% going into it. And then the other thing is like, how is the musculoskeletal system affected? How are you affected down to a cellular level? Well, if the mental and emotional system's coming back fast, that's wonderful. That's not necessarily a green light to like start things up again. And I think it's always better to be a little bit cautious, but we're going to transition into this next segment about like, I think a training myth or like a ultra running myth is that like if you do ultras, you're going to get slower. Well, that might not necessarily be true, actually, and it really probably depends on how you handle the recovery.
Yeah, and again, like, I would just, like, I mean, I know not everyone has, like, I was part of a study where I, like, was getting blood draws, like, all the dang time, which was very cool, but, like, that really, really changed how I approach recovery and how I approach it with athletes, because, again, I was that asshole that was like, I feel great, like, let's start hammering, and no, like there are just physical realities in your body that must be respected. And it's tough because like our culture, particularly ultra running culture, particularly on like fucking Instagram and Strava, is like, oh, I'm 3 days out from my 100-mile race. Time to do a shakeout. Fuck that. Don't do that. Like your bones are like literally have micro fissures in them. Do not fuck with that. Your muscles are breaking down. You have renal stress. Yeah. Like men, if you ever want to have a boner again, don't do that. Women, if you want to continue to have the correct amount of estrogen and again, functional bones, don't do that.
Yeah.
Like seriously, guys, like running and like even like one of our good friends Peter Bromka, who's a marathon coach, texted us after Western States last year and he was like, yo, what is wrong with your community? Because he was like, marathoners, we go run a marathon and we take like 2-3 weeks off. Like ultra runners will run a 100 miler and 5 days later they're out jogging again. What the fuck? And you know what, Bromka, you're right.
Yeah, 5 days later they're doing another 100 miler.
Yeah, I think a lot of the things that get normalized on our culture are just so unhealthy. Like, there's just no, like that. Again, I hold space. Like, there is physiological variability. Some people definitely have some genetic gifts that allow them to recover and adapt better. But I know I've also coached athletes who feel the pressure. They're like, why am I not recovering from my 100 fast enough? And that pressure is real. Like, you're not less than or bad or different. Like, because your recovery timeline is different, the only thing that is bad is not respecting your personal recovery timeline.
Or trying to force your recovery time to fit in what you think, like, the specific kind of personification of the ultra runner recovery timeline.
Or, like, having an insane jam-packed race schedule that it just exists in denial to human physiology.
Well, I think we need to face the facts in endurance sports, particularly in ultra running, is we've normalized what are a lot of extremely unhealthy behaviors. Yeah. Running an ultra isn't necessarily the most healthy behavior to begin with.
Yeah.
When done right with the proper training and everything, you can mitigate a lot of the risk there. And certainly, you know, it's less risky than other things. I don't know, skiing down a mountain in Chamonix, for example, might be inherently more risky, but this is also has risks that it can impact your long-term health. We've seen many ultra runners have a lot of success and burn bright very quickly.
Oh yeah.
Only classic, to have the shortest careers.
First year, you know, have a great performance, you get sponsored, then you try to race like 9 100s in your second ever year of being an ultra runner, and then you get a stress fracture and or like adrenal fatigue, and then you're never heard from again. And that sucks. And I don't want that to happen to people because the sport is awesome, and when you approach it healthfully and sustainably, it will be life-changing. So don't like fuck Instagram, fuck Strava, take care of yourself.
Check your scarcity mindset around time.
Yeah.
You have abundant time to accomplish all of your goals.
Your feelings are valid, but also physiological facts trump your fucking feelings every time. Sorry.
Case in point. Let's see those results. I just need a good reminder as to why my legs didn't feel great on my run today.
Yeah, I mean that blood test was seriously life-changing for me. I was like, "Oh, that's what's happening inside. Holy shit. I don't want to fuck with that."
All right, let's talk about this myth around ultras making you slower.
Yeah, this is something I hear a lot, that like, oh, well, I want to run like a 50K or I want to run a 100, but I'm scared it'll make me slow. And if you train poorly for an ultra, yeah, you'll probably get really slow. That's a fact. If you don't train well, you'll probably get slow. But if you train well for an ultra, you honestly should not be getting very slow. Caveats to this include if you are training for 250, 200, or 300 mile races, we're not going to emphasize speed development a whole heck of a lot. And that's kind of a different thing.
Well, it does feel logical, right, to think about ultra running as something that's going to make you slower because the training tends to involve a lot of long runs in, relatively slow terrain, technical, a lot of hills up and down. So there's, less turnover, less emphasis on neuromuscular sharpness and adaptations. I can see why people think that, and have that fear. And, I'm just excited to provide a different kind of perspective on that.
Yeah. So, yeah, when you take real world experience and emerging evidence, it shows that long distance training and racing can build speed when you approach it thoughtfully and intentionally. Like, a big part of our philosophy is fitness first. We're always building, like, you're training for 200 miles, you're training for a 5K, fitness is our number one thing we're working on.
Right.
And this is especially true when we think about long-term adaptations and not just short-term race cycles. So, let's zoom out a little bit and talk about the physiological foundation and how endurance training can build a speed base. So let's talk a little bit about aerobic capacity today.
Yes, I love the long, steady efforts
Yep.
that increase your mitochondrial density. Angiogenesis is my literal best friend. So we're talking about what we were talking about earlier when we had that hot or not question about low heart rate training. We're basically essentially talking about how do you build aerobic capacity. We do a lot of zone 1, zone 2, endurance style, easy running efforts, 80 to 90% of your training. We're making sure that we are at those RPE or heart rate zones in order to maximize our adaptations. You will not get, and angiogenesis does not happen if you're in zone 3, zone 4, zone 5. It's going to be very hard to increase that mitochondrial density if you're
Yep.
running too fast all the time. So when you increase your aerobic capacity, that's going to give you the ability to go longer,
Yep.
faster. Talk to us about fatigue resistance.
Yeah, so running in and training for ultras will improve your muscle endurance and the ability to clear lactate. So that mid-race fatigue buffering CR episode on lactate threshold and threshold training. Training for long races also teaches the body to preserve muscle fibers, especially those slow twitch type 2 muscle fibers, which are crucial for sustained speed at the end of races.
Yes.
It can also help with running economy. So high volume training, like the training that we do for ultras, improves running economy, even at faster paces. So what we always really like to emphasize is that endurance is the foundation of speed. They're not opposites. Speed is not always the foundation of endurance. Economy can't, like, there is some, like, sort of like two-hand shaking there, but without the aerobic engine, you can't support high-speed efforts sustainably, which is why we always emphasize that zone 1, zone 2 work.
Right, which is why, when you have newer athletes say, "Oh, I'm doing my heat training," and all that kind of stuff. It's like, well, it's good. You're doing some speed, but like, are you actually doing the right amount of easy running to provoke the adaptations you need for that speed work, that high intensity training that you're doing to actually matter, to that like correlate to better outcomes?
Right. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about neuromuscular maintenance and why doing speed work doesn't just disappear. So let's talk about something called speed decay risk. So this is the idea that without regular exposure to faster paces, your neuromuscular adaptations fade. So that's why we always mix in stride, short intervals, and hill intervals to maintain leg turnover and coordination. Doesn't mean you have to do them every day, sprinkling them in throughout regular training.
Yeah, like in good balance training is always going to have an emphasis on some kind of speed. And that can literally be your strides, but that can also be steady state tempos.
Correct.
Faster running than easy works for this.
Yep.
And good training is going to layer these in at specific times to maximize the benefits that allow you to have the most race specific adaptations you need to perform well.
Yep.
So it's a combination of these things, or these things done discreetly at correct times, are going to help with those neuromuscular adaptations.
Right. And it really doesn't take much. You know, we'll use things like between 4 to 6 either uphill, like hill strides, or flat strides, depending on the athlete and their injury risk, goals, background, all of that. 20 to 30 seconds. But we also really like uphill strides and uphill intervals in general. That lowers injury risk. It can help with a higher power output, particularly for athletes who maybe like neuromuscularly can't sustain a top speed very well. Well, if you do an interval uphill, it's pretty easy to run hard uphill. Bada bing, bada boom, we're training.
Love gravity.
Yep. So think of speed as more like a dimmer switch, not an on-off light. So our goal is to always just keep a little brightness year round.
Love it. Post-race opportunities, super compensation windows. Okay, this is like, I think, a pretty interesting area. And if you get it right, man,
big
it
emphasis
can be,
on the
if sweet. And if you get it wrong, boy, can it be.
I feel bad for your kidneys and hormones and endocrine system and intimate life partner, because you will be cranky and tired.
There will not be a lot of intimacy.
Yeah, the intimacy will be a challenge. Wrong. See my earlier boner comment. So let's talk a little bit about what happens after an ultra. Your body can actually enter a heightened state of adaptation called supercompensation if you allow full recovery first. Once your muscle damage resolves, those aerobic adaptations from the race linger, and the system is primed to absorb work. But timing really, really matters here. You have to wait until recovery is complete. So look for signs like normalized resting heart rate, no soreness, and mental readiness. And typically, in this, we're going to give a big window here. And again, acknowledging there's a lot of room for individual variation, but 2 to 4 weeks post-ultra can be a good window to resume light speed work. So you can start with maybe like just like slowly reintroducing strides, then getting back to shorter intervals, longer intervals, potentially increasing reps. Like I know you and I, we're 3 weeks out now?
Yeah.
3 weeks out, we're going to do a few strides before we go into a VO2 max training block, because we are the same athlete who should be coached the same, because we're exactly identical.
Exactly the same amount of time at intensity. Same.
Yeah, that's a joke. Our training, there's some similar vibe in our training, but it does look extremely different.
Well, you follow the principles, but you adapt them to the individual. So
correct.
I think that's really important to recognize. But, here's our coaching note on this. Think of post-ultra speed work as tilling the soil. I love it. Nice. The fitness is
gardening.
there. Yes, you do. I noticed some new pots outside.
I got 2 new plants this week. This is my post-ultra focus. I have a gorgeous new succulent on my desk, and I got a nice Chinese money tree upstairs.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
So fitness is there. Don't rush the recovery process. Trust that it's there. This is so hard for people, especially newer athletes. Guys, trust that it's not going anywhere. Just coax it out with a smart progression, but wait until you're recovered. If you're self-coaching, be cautious. Start with strides. See how they feel over 2 or 3 sessions over a week or 10 days, and then add in those shorter intervals and then progress that based on how you feel. If something feels off, give yourself some extra time to recover. Don't force that timeline forward because X influencer or pro does that. Like, it's really important to listen to your own individuality.
Correct. Also, I think an important thing to acknowledge are the psychological gains. You can get mental speed, so to speak, from these longer efforts. So ultras longer races can build enormous mental toughness and pacing discipline. Runners who do these longer races can get better at holding discomfort, which also directly translates to faster efforts, which is why I'm always like, it's funny when people are like, oh, it's way easier for me to like run long and slow than like, run hard. And it's like, well, that's a narrative issue there, because discomfort is discomfort, like no matter what like flavor of it is. So I would say reframe. You can be equally like, I'm very good at all types of discomfort.
I'm good at running in the night.
I am good at hurting. I hurt real good.
You hurt great.
So racing for hours teaches patience and effort regulation, and those are awesome skills in fast races and workouts too. Endurance races sharpen your mental gears just as much as they do physical ones.
All right, so we really advocate for athletes to have a practical year-round strategy for speed and ultras. This stuff should work over a longer period, and should be structured within a long-term blueprint for your overall development as an athlete within the context of your specific goals. So maintain your touch points with speed. This can be fast strides or hill strides if you're doing a week of training that is more geared toward aerobic adaptations and race-specific adaptations. You need to run longer in order to meet the demands of an event that you're doing. But don't let go of that speed entirely. Do 1 or 2 sessions with strides. Very important. And we talked about in our call about... what was that call about? The one where we talked about losing adaptations, how fast you lose
detraining.
Detraining. We talked. It
was a podcast, I believe. We make a podcast. We're podcasting right now.
Sorry. In the podcast, we talked about how if you decrease intent, how much intensity you can decrease without losing adaptations,
right?
And losing fitness. So if you maintain some speed, you're going to maintain a higher level of your VO2 max. So if you're in a phase of training where you're doing a lot longer runs, don't let go of the speed altogether, or else you'll lose a higher percentage of your VO2 max, which will decrease your ceiling on race day. Not great. So post ultra focus block is also really important, just as important as the speed work you do en route to that ultra.
Yep.
So after recovery, dedicate 4 to 6 weeks to target speed development. And like we were mentioning before, set a progression that meets you where you're at and allows you to get a sense for if you're fully recovered or not. Start with strides, move to shorter intervals, then you can move on to tempo or threshold efforts.
Yeah, and here's where I would also advocate for strength training, right? Like, we aren't just runners, we are athletes, and you can maintain muscle recruitment and durability with consistent strength training. So that's a big thing I would advocate for, and I would say that no training plan is complete without a bit of strength and mobility to support your work on the track and trails.
You'll be happy to hear that I did my first strength session back yesterday.
I know this because I could hear you grunting all the way in my office.
It was really difficult. It was a tough session.
I just heard like, I don't know what coach has you doing, but it sounds gross. I don't like it.
That bench press is really hard.
You're bench pressing?
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Let's fucking go. I'm
getting my
bench.
beach bod ready.
Hell yeah.
For summer.
Fucking love this. For our honeymoon ready.
No actual core strength, though.
Right. Well, only the things that matter. But I think, the message I would want to impart to all athletes is that speed isn't built in a silo. It's built across the year with layered systems of strength, endurance, and neuromuscular sharpness.
Okay. Talk to us about the big picture, just in closing up this conversation.
Yeah. In closing, endurance supports speed, and the idea that training for ultras should make you slow is just not a thing. If you're training well, yes, again, if you're just kind of out there free balling and signing up for hundreds and hiking around a bunch, yeah, you're probably not gonna get that much faster. But if you are developing your aerobic engine and muscular durability the way that you should to run an ultra well and to execute an ultra well, that should set an incredible foundation for faster running. I know, like, N of one, personal experience, I was doing higher volume training to get ready for Chianti than I've ever done, and I was getting faster because the goal was fitness.
Right.
And I got fitter. Fitter meant faster, and it also meant better endurance. Like, doing well at ultras and getting faster are not like two different things, and we need to stop talking about them as if they are totally different things. There are some specific things that are like, there's some specificity involved in ultras. We're just like, yeah, doing hella track workouts, probably not the best way to train for UTMB because there are other components to that affair as well.
You do have to go uphill.
But you should also probably hit the track. You do have to go uphill. That's the thing at UTMB.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people think speed and endurance are opposites. But they're not. They're partners in the process when you build the base.
It's like you and I. We seem like opposites on the surface, but at the end of the day, we're just two people that want to eat cookies and watch reality shows about cooking.
Yes. And that's the beauty of the whole thing.
And that's the thing that truly matters.
I'm speed and you're endurance.
That seems right, yeah. That's correct.
No, I think it's the opposite, actually.
I'm speed?
I think you're speed. Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
But you're like, you feel like you have the vibe of like a fast twitch.
I'm a fast twitch guy.
Fast twitch athlete. Like you're a tennis player. You're like a little muscle hamster zigzagging around on the trails. I'm just like a water buffalo moving slowly uphill. It's my spirit animal because that's where the good cheese comes from.
Yes, and you do love cheese.
I do love good cheese.
There's no cheese left in Italy.
No, I ate all the cheese.
All right, guys, hope you enjoyed this. And if you've made it this far, please take a minute to rate and review us on your preferred listening platform. We'd really appreciate it. We haven't gotten a review on iTunes, I think, since 2023.
Yeah.
Guys, come on. We've got like a few hundred more listeners than we had back then. So
help a water buffalo out.
Yeah. All right, thanks. Reach out. We'd love to hear from you guys. Microcosmcoaching@gmail.com. Microcosm-coaching.com. See you next week.